Well, today we are making this fun pumpkin sign. Stay tuned and see how fun and easy it is to make. All right, so let's take a look at our pumpkin sign pieces. We've got 2 back pieces and then 4 of the pumpkin itself. I thought it would be nice this time to have a little more dimension to the pumpkin part. So we're going to start like we always do, and I'm going to talk you through where to get the pattern and all the rules and stuff and why we're using the materials we are. So we're going to start by gluing. We're going to make what I call units. We're going to make 2 units out of these 6 pieces. We're going to start with the 2 back pieces and we're going to glue them together. Now, the pattern for this is a free download. It's available on my blog post that goes with this video. The link for that will be in the description box underneath the video. Follow the link, and in the first paragraph or so of the blog, there will be a link taking you to the free downloadable pattern. In the pattern, you'll have 2 types of pattern. You will have a PNG file that also has a text file that goes with it, and that is for cutting with your electronic cutting machine. I cut mine with my Cricut, and I use the same PNG that you'll be able to download. You will also find a PDF file if you want to download this and cut it by hand, and that's totally a doable option. You can make as many of these signs as you want. You can make the signs and sell them if you want to. You can give them away. You can use them in your mini group as a trade. Just don't give my pattern away, please. If somebody else wants the pattern, have them come to the video, come to the blog post, and get it for themselves. Because the only compensation I get for making these patterns for the time that I spend designing them and figuring out how to do the different steps and things, the only compensation I get is when you guys click on the video and click on the blog post. So in order to keep giving these to you for free, I need you guys to follow those rules, and they're simple rules. Now, what have I cut this out of? I use medium weight white cardstock. This is an inexpensive cardstock from the craft store. It's available wherever they have card making supplies or scrapbooking supplies. And it's just a medium weight, a regular weight. I do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, I only have to have 1 color of cardstock on hand for making any project I want to make. And secondly, I find that by painting the white cardstock, that does a couple of things. Number one, the paint tends to be more color fast in the sun on display than colored cardstock. I always have colored cardstock fade if it's left out for any length of time. Also, we are making these out of layers of paper. By painting them, that paint around those edges helps to disguise that this is not a piece of wood, helps disguise it so that it looks like it's a piece of wood, not a bunch of layers of cardstock. So I've got these glued. Oh, and I use just a thick tacky glue because I have better luck with tacky glue than I do with glue sticks. I've had too many failures over the years with glue sticks. I would prefer to put a thin layer of tacky glue onto my project with a toothpick or something similar and give it a few more minutes to dry. Now, this will need to dry pretty much completely because I don't want this paper to be this cardstock to be at all damp when I go to the next step. The next step, we will be laying this on a piece of tape to hold it still, and then we're going to paint it. The paint doesn't go on as nicely if the glue isn't dried, and if we put this onto the tape, the back side tends to tear really badly if it's not dry when we do that. I am going to put a weight on this. Not sure what I'll use. I'll find something to set on here. I've put all my heavy things over on my kitchen counter. So I'm going to find something heavy to set on top of this ruler, on top of this, just so it can get started to dry, and then I'll let it have air to finish drying. That helps to prevent it from curling up. So when this is completely dry, I'll come back and we can start painting. All right, the glue is completely dry, and I've put a piece of tape, sticky side up, tape down on each end, and I've put a piece of wax paper under here to protect my work surface. That makes cleanup a lot easier. We are going to do this back piece a little differently than we do sometimes. We're only painting the outside edges of this one and the stem. So what I've got here, I didn't have a light brown. I would kind of like a little bit lighter brown than this burnt umber I have. So I mixed some burnt umber with some white till I got a lighter brown. And this one I'm not going to stick down until I get it all painted. So I'm going to use some of this, and I'm going to paint this. And I'm going to make sure I get the edges of it, because I want to make sure the edges are painted. Then I have some pumpkin color acrylic paint from Anita's, and I think I'm actually going to squirt some out because I'm going to need a bit of this on there, so I've got a good place to work from. I am going to start by painting around the edges of this piece and in a little bit. That way, when we glue, after we paint the pieces on this coat of paint, we are going to glue them together before we finish our painting. But this way we have just a little bit of paint there. Now this piece, I'm going to try and get the edges as well as the entire front. And I'm not going to do my second coat. Normally I would do 2 coats of paint and then glue together. This time I want to have this part done. Then I'm going to glue the pumpkin together. Then we're going to do our more detailed painting of the pumpkin. We're going to put some shading and some highlights in to give it some shape and get it looking the way we want it. We probably will do a little bit with the stem also. So I want that to go all the way to the edge and probably up in there. And I think I want a little more of the brown down. Bring this down just a little more. I'm going to go clean my brushes, and I'm going to let this dry all the way. I want the paint completely dry before I try to do any gluing, because I've had issues with paint getting reactivated with the glue when it's partially dry and making a big mess and things don't stick together well. I am going to cover that paint, and that way that paint will stay viable probably through tomorrow. So if I don't get back to this today, that paint will still be good. So I will see you when this dries. All right, my paint is completely dry. And like I said, we're only doing the first coat before we glue together today. Now, since the first coat we don't always get the edges completely, I check to make sure this side, this edge, the paint is completely covering the edge. This edge, I missed a couple of spots. So this is the one I'm going to put at the bottom of my pumpkin, because we are going to paint this edge, but we won't be able to paint up here without getting it on the stem. So I'm now going to coat the back of my pumpkin with some glue. That same tacky glue, and since it was covered up, it has stayed just fine. I've had glue up to, I think, about 2 days. As long as I've remembered to cover it each time, it stays perfectly usable for at least 2 days when I cover it like that. And it gets a little thicker, which I kind of like. All right, kind of like scoosh it around a little bit, kind of spread that glue around, line up the little bumps. And then I'm going to put a weight on this. I'm going to put it under my ruler again and put a weight on it. That way I know it will stay flat. And this glue needs to get all the way dry before we go on to our next step. Oh, and don't worry if a little bit of glue oozes out, it will dry clear. And any shine that remains from the glue is fine, because we are going to coat this with Mod Podge when we're done. So I am going to lay this down. I'm going to put a weight on it, And when this is dry, I'll come back and we can start doing the decorative painting. All right, I've zoomed the camera in closer so you can hopefully see what I'm doing. I'm going to try to stay under camera. My glue is mostly dry. It's not completely dry. There's still a little bit of cloudiness from the glue, but that's okay. We're just going to work on the stem a little bit. I've got some of the same burnt umber that I mixed with white earlier to paint it, and I've got a round toothpick, and I just want to make just some lines in here. Just add a little depth. It doesn't have to make a lot of sense. I am trying to follow the shape of the stem, but it doesn't need to be perfect. And that's all there is to this part. I'm going to go around the edge a little bit. I just want it to look not completely flat. Okay, now I'm going to let this dry for probably about 10-20 minutes, just so that that paint doesn't get smeared when we work on painting the pumpkin itself. So I'll be back when that has time to set. All right, that paint has set up for a little bit, and now I'm going to go through. This is the paint we had earlier for the pumpkin itself. I'm going to go around the edge. This will help cover up any spots we missed, and it also helps to kind of disguise that this, once again, is layers of paper. Now, it's going straight back on that tape. And I'm going to paint my second coat of paint. There we go. A little more paint than I would normally put on. Now, I have some terracotta colored paint. I'm going to put a dot of that over here. It's just a slightly darker orangey color. And I've got a little micro brush. You could use a dotting tool, you could use whatever you've got available. And I'm going to use this to kind of make, I'm going to mix a little bit of that dark brown. I'm reaching over, grabbing a little bit of that burnt umber. Let's see if I can mix in. Didn't really mix it. Okay. I just want to make some little lines. Along those, where those dips come in, kind of connect those. So it looks like the pumpkin has a little dimension, because that's just slightly darker. And now I've got some yellow. This is bright yellow. And I am putting out fresh paint and not working out of the lid. I'm putting a drop out because I am probably picking up the tiniest bit of that orange pumpkin color on my brushes, and I don't want to get that, I don't want to contaminate the paint. I'm doing this now rather than waiting for that orange to dry, because a little bit here. And I have a Q-tip. And I'm going to kind of mix it. I'm blending it in. I don't want that to be really obvious. I want it to be blended just a little bit. And that's really all there is to it. I'm going to let that dry, and when that dries, we can put a clear coat on it. But that will have to get all the way dry. So when that happens, I'll be back. All right, my pumpkin has dried overnight, so I know the paint is completely dry, so I'm not worried about dipping into my container. I'm going to give this a quick, light, even coat of satin Mod Podge, and then I'll do a coat on the back also, And once both sides are completely dry, we'll go over to the dollhouse and we'll see how it looks on the front porch. So I'll see you there. All right, I've put our pumpkin sign onto the front of the dollhouse and I love how it looks. Now you don't have to stop at this point. You could add a jack-o'-lantern face. You could write Happy Halloween. You could do any number of things to take this to the next level. That's up to you. And if you do make any of my projects, be sure and let me see a picture of what you make. I bet you could do some incredible things with this basic pumpkin. I wanted to highlight the painting technique today, so that's what we did. But let me see pictures of what you do with it. So if you be sure and check the blog post for pictures, more details, and the link to the free downloadable pattern. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure and leave a like and leave a comment. Tell me what you'd like to see me make in future videos. If you enjoy my content and haven't subscribed, I encourage you hit that subscription button and the notification bell so you know when I put up a new video. Thank you very much for watching today, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.